Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. I got my brother from the other mother in the building today, Jamar Williams, founder and CEO of PromoDrone. Jamar, my brother, how are you doing?
Excellent, man. I'm great. Good to see you. Thanks for having me. Just feeling super fortunate and just inspired, man. So thanks for helping me keep that going.
That's what's up. I'm looking at your background too. I love the trumpet guy back there. That's giving me some of that soul jazzy New Orleans. I need to go down on Bourbon Street type of vibes. Where'd you get that from?
That's actually a gift from my mom, man. I think that was either a birthday or Christmas gift a while back. Just a beautiful gesture from my mom. She knows, I think we spoke a little bit about I have a music background, and it's interesting you say jazz. My dad's a jazz musician, percussionist, and so music's a big part of me, and it's kind of how I got started in this whole drone thing. Ironically,
yeah. And your story is impressive, from music to drones. We're going to jump into it in just a little bit. But for the people who don't know you, I always like to start off, and it can seem like a deep question, but who is Jamar? Who is Jamar Williams? And I know that sounds like you could take it as deep as you want or as surface as you want. Just give the people an overview.
Yeah, I always say that I'm a creator and an articulator, right? Like I like to build things and I like to talk about these cool things that I built, right? So, and it comes in different formats, whether it's drone products or songs, right? That's when you start to think about this merger. Always just had a fascination with creating. And once I had that creation done, finding a way to brag or excitedly about it, so to speak.
Yeah.
So kind of just a mouthpiece for life. Just say that I'm a mouthpiece for life.
Yeah. And I can see that too, because me and my brother, we was hooking up. He got the gift of gab. He's just creative. And your story is so fascinating me. So let's start from the beginning, because you used to be in the music before you got into this drone thing. Yeah. Tell me about the music journey. Like, how did you start on the career journey to music, and then how did you take me through that, and then transitioning into being the founder and CEO of this drone business?
Yeah, man. It's so it goes back to Bonner Road, a little street in Baltimore, Maryland, right? So I was born in Baltimore.
I gotta give a shout out because I'm from the DMV too. So I gotta give a shout out to my peoples back home.
Always, right? So props to Baltimore, man. So no, blood and sweat all started in Baltimore, man. So I was a kid, had a mom and dad, but not in the same house after a certain point, right? Not unlike a lot of kids in my neighborhood. So I had a lot of idle time, on my hands when mom would go to work and in between things. So I found a way to attract trouble to some degree, at that point. So, but I had a buddy of mine who, let's just say, he was one of my good friends, Shannon. He still love him to this day. He spit his first rap to me one day, right? And I was just blown away. Thought that was just for the guys on TV, right? I never thought about that we could actually do that, right? So Shannon spit his rap to me one day, and I was like, oh, crap, then he can do it. I can try it out, So then I started, he's kind of kept doing it, and I started tinkering around with it. And somewhere around the 8th grade, I think I did my first talent show in the 8th grade. And that's when I realized, okay, this music thing taught me a lot of lessons, right? I'm fortunate, like I said, to have a dad that was in music. So my dad was kind of a cop by day, musician by night.
Yeah.
So he definitely wanted to keep me on a straight and narrow. And that's where we kind of bumped heads a lot growing up. We had it was for my better good, those challenges, and having somebody like him that really dropped those jewels. But, having so much of your life at one point, having a certain perspective, sometimes those jewels don't always go to the bank the right way, kind of, so to speak. So music was a way for me to kind of start staying out of trouble. My dad bought me my first music studio in our basement after I got arrested when I was 11 years old. He moved me out from the cities and the trenches out to the suburbs. And it was a culture shock for me because I wasn't used to this. You come from a place where everybody's in the same bucket, and I didn't even know what racism was. That's how I was. That's how sheltered I was. When everybody's black in your neighborhood, you never really get outside of it. You don't even racism I didn't even know what that was, because I was like, who's going to blame who? That shows how sheltered I was at the same time. I'm talking block level, couple blocks, neighborhood kind of stuff, right? So had this culture shock, went out to the suburbs, and then that's when I started to really flex my creativity. I started meeting some dudes from different backgrounds, perspectives. I had a little bit of, and they were looking at me like, oh, this is a city dude coming out here, So that brought a lot of stuff too. A lot of people want to test, stuff like that, right? But don't do it. But anyway, so I got into the music, and my dad built me a kind of my first music studio, which was a computer with Cakewalk was the software at the time.
Cakewalk, okay.
Cakewalk, that's old school. I think that was 6th or 7th grade, maybe somewhere in that range, 8th grade, right around that talent show time. He built me that studio, and I started to take it seriously and start writing my own music, writing my lyrics, and realize I was, talented at it. And one thing led to another. Went from Baltimore to New Jersey to go to college, and up there, that's when you really get your freedom, when diversity really sets in, right? So I went from Baltimore to William Paterson University in New Jersey. So now you've got Hispanics, Asian, Black, white, everybody, Indian, and everything,
on everything in between too.
Right. But now it's like forcing me to come out of my comfort zone. But also I had a little bit of, Barn Road still there too. Just from Jersey, a lot of Jersey, Newark, and Brick City, and they're up in there too. So I got a lot of love from like all around, and it really started to bolster my confidence and inspire change in me to where I realized that I wanted to just see as much of that. If this is what I was missing all this time, like wow, like imagine what else is out there, right? So college was really that tipping point that took me from, this kid who got expelled from high school, arrested at age 11. Back and forth with the, certain types of individuals, faced until my dad said he saw my face up on a wall one day with a bunch of other people where my face shouldn't have been on that wall kind of deal, right? So college was kind of that tipping point. I met some really cool friends there, and then my music started to blossom there. Now I have a stage, an audience, a voice. You're talking radio networks, college performances. Nice. I'm building a reputation. I'm going to New York, rapping, freestyling. I'm like, shit, I'm good at this now, like I'm dope. Like I'm not just like this guy that was tinkering. Like I'm really dope with this. People are respecting me. So now I'm booking, like doing shows at little nightclubs here and there off campus, building my rep. So during the 4 years I was in college, it was me, skimming through college, because I, best I could, still trying to make that transition, right? But I was a smart kid always. But my struggle was never smarts. It was focus and consistency and discipline, right? So I got through college, and that was my first taste of like real discipline. 4 years through, I have this degree now. Took the SATs and got close to 1,100 on it. This kid that was expelled from high school got at least over 1,000 on his SATs. Wow. So I even had like a little scholarship, right? So I was like, crazy, right? So now I'm starting to use both sides of the brain, and meanwhile the creativity and the music starting to just thrive, flourish, the family support, all that kind of good stuff. And that's became a really dope MC. So that's what I thought I was going to do. Yeah. And this is why I'm still in New Jersey. I was in New York for 9/11, that whole thing, and graduated. And was like, okay, am I going to stay here? Or am I going to go back? So I went back to Baltimore, decided I need something to start paying the school loans while I work on my music career. Right. Yeah. Put out an album out of my basement. And one of the engineers on my project, his wife was a operations manager at a bank. Right. So she said, hey, I know you need money to whatever when you're working on music, but I think you'd be great at the bank. So I did an application for a teller at a bank. Right. So this is right out of college, back at home, trying to not be at home so I can get back to that freedom again. Nobody wants to go back home. No. Be home, right?
Definitely not.
Right. Especially my parents were like, you need to do something. Right. Like they're like, I know you did college, but like we remember all the way up to Randallstown too. Right. Like you got to do something. Right. So I was like, all right, bet. So I was a substitute teacher, believe it or not, for probably 3-4 months in between just to make some money. And I really had the MC in me was still there, but the students were my audience now, and the stage was in front of a classroom. So I really started to enjoy the position of leadership and started to understand how important my voice can be in a different kind of way. That was kind of the precursor to this, right? So I got to the bank. I was a teller. I'm exchanging money. People are coming up to me, and I'm using my voice now in a customer service kind of role, which I've never done. And I'm like, okay, it's a bank. I'm making $19,000, but to me, that was like right out of college. But I had benefits and could go to the dentist, and I was like an adult, kind of deal. Like $18,000
adulting real quick.
Yeah, real fast. So within 2 weeks of me working at that bank, the regional manager, operations manager, they sat me down. I was like, look, you're great, and this position is like beneath you, so to speak, kind of not beneath me, no positions beneath me, but just you're more skilled than what this job entails, let's say. So they offered me a position as a relationship banker. And now I'm sitting at a desk and I'm opening accounts and answering questions and learning more about how important the customer experience is and defining a transaction, how to build trust with people, how to use my communication skills and what I've learned about, to help somebody in this financial matters. Like, it's a very noble profession, banking. If you're helping people with their financial future and getting them out of holes and seeing them on the bright side. So that was a very rewarding thing. So I moved up the career fast in banking because I love people, right? And I love that communication. But I missed doing music because now I'm becoming an adult and my salary's going from 18 to like 30 and 60 to 90, and it's just it's going up, and I'm like corporate guy now, right? So I lose my job in 2008 after all the success that I was having in banking during the financial fallout. Everything's like grinding down.
That big crisis, huh? Like when they
2008. But I had a lot of experience now. I had the Bonner Road experience, the high school Randallstown experience, the college experience, and now in 7.5 years, 8 years of banking almost. 8 years of banking. And when I lost my job, I realized that I had a slight identity crisis for a little bit because I was so used to being that guy in the suit that when the suit was removed, I felt a little like I didn't know where to find my value as much, because now I'm not performing as much, not doing the things that I love, but I'm doing these things, but I'm learning and growing over here. So met a beautiful woman. We moved to San Diego together, and I got here, started doing more music. I'm like, okay, here's my chance. I've invested all that banking money into my studio at my house. So I'll start building my studio up, putting out music, performing all around San Diego, and just having a ball, meeting up with some crazy personalities, because SoCal is like unlike anything I've ever freaking experienced in my life. I was like, what is this place, right? Like sunshine, palm trees, but you believe that you can do anything here, right? It's like, this is the land of experimentation here, right? You come here, you can feel free, right?
The other thing I love about San Diego too, being that we East Coasters, we come out here, they say we moving too fast. Like, if we come out here and start running the city, like we start doing everything. I could hustle my way around this city,
right? Pretty quickly, right? But it's some smart people in a really good business community here, so I'm glad and fortunate to be a part of it. So we moved here, and I started doing shows, and I actually wrote a song and a kind of a commercial jingle for a business here in San Diego. It's so wild. This is how wild San Diego is. I met a guy who owned a business, and they had a pig that was the mascot of their company. And this pig is like this fancy, like I think it's called a Juliana pig or something. And it's a very not rare, but just kind of not the average pig kind of deal, right? Maybe bordering rare, expensive, So they owned a pig here in San Diego at a farm that they had called an urban farm right here in North Park, right? So there's like a rich couple, let's say well-off, couple, with a house that's a farm and a house next door and then a pool in the back part. It's like a party zone. So they wanted me to write a song and for their pig as the mascot. So I wrote an entire song for that as a mascot for their company. We shot a lavish video, including the pig. It was called That's Okay, about this pig's ridiculous sport. Like, this pig lived better than probably 90% of most, like Range Rover, red carpet, nails painted, like hair salon, like all of that ridiculousness, right? And I was like, welcome to Southern California. Like, this is where it happened. So the guy that I shot the video with, we ended up going into business together to do other video projects, right? And one thing led to another, where I eventually, went from shooting commercials for businesses to shooting real estate, right? Because I'm like, okay, real estate's transactional, it's fast, it's easy. I can use my customer service skills from banking and all of that to get business. I have my business partner that can shoot and edit and do all that ridiculous stuff with the camera. Super good combo. So we started doing real estate. And one day, Evan, that's his name, said, dude, you want to help me build a drone? And I was like, what? A what? So he shows, this is 8 years ago now. So, 7, 8 years ago. Before drones were how they, readily available for $50 and all that at Walmart. So we had he ordered, him and his roommate ordered a DJI F550 drone. It was a 450 or 550, one of those. And it was $3,000 at the time. And it took about 15, 16 months for all the parts to come in. It came. So now you buy drones right off the shelf, right? You have these little things, these things. These things that just, you just buy them just, all ready to rock and roll, right? This is nothing. This is like, oh yeah, been there, done that. But 7 years ago, this thing would come in pieces, and you have to learn how to solder rotors and calibrate motors and all of that to get this to fly. So now this kid from Bonner Road has gone through all this stuff, and now here I am, like almost like a little scientist now. I'm like calibrate engineer, so to some degree, learning about drones and the stuff that I had no experience in, but I found it fascinating. So we started using the drones as for real estate. It was one of the first drone companies in San Diego that had drones for real estate. And throughout our business, we would notice because drones were in their early stages, especially, you got a lot of looks, stares, cursing at the drone, whatever, but attention. It made people take their face out of their Instagram, their Facebook, whatever app was at the time, and look up at our drone and then point their cell phone right at it, right? That's the first thing they do is point their cell phone at it. So I said, okay, ding, 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 ding. If they're pointing their phone at it, that means they're capturing that drone with their phone. And what if I put a message on there, a banner, a logo, or some kind of information on it? Now, all of those people that are just instinctively wanting to look at that drone have just given impressions to whatever is flying on that subject, right? So it could be, even if it's like, don't shoot me down, or like I come in peace, whatever, just to let you know that my drone's not a bad drone, right? One thing led to another, and started PromoDrone just off of that experience I was having with the general public and just using their reaction, flipping it, because I realized that they were responding out of curiosity and fear, right?
Yeah.
Curiosity is good. Fear, we want to change fear into comfort, right? So fear is alleviated by information. So when most drones are flying over, they're clandestine. You don't know who's flying these things. It could be Bob, John, James, William. We don't know. Could be spying on someone. It could not, could be just a cable guy coming to look at what the power lines look like. It could be somebody just doing a college project, or it could be somebody scouting out a house to rob. It could be anything in between, right?
Yeah.
So the beauty of what we do is we demystify what the drone's nature is by having advertising or some sort of digital display tied to it. Now we started it with advertising, but what we've realized in the last few months, which was what our new push is, our expansion is in the public safety, right? So we're using drones targeting emergency response. So think post-disaster, all these floods and hurricanes in Florida now. When these things are done, it's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of people out of power. Drones with digital monitors on them are able to now communicate in those neighborhoods, letting them know help is on the way, giving them directions to rally points, allowing us to communicate two-way if someone's injured in order to give medical instructions, to pinpoint their location, to allow responders to go directly to them, which reallocates their budget. You save time, you save money, you save lives, right? So we took this idea that was initially like, they're fascinated with it for advertising. And we're like, well, if they're fascinated with it for that, what if we used it for good, even a better purpose, which is drones for good? What if we saved lives with that information? What if we were able to empower an EMS person where stress is the number one factor in a successful operation, right? Not technology, it's stress. It's the human factor. If we can de-stress the operator by giving them technology that makes their job more efficient, easier to do, helps them go home to their families and possibly bring somebody else back home safely to their family, then so now our mission is to drive that emergency response using drones, and then start to build further into our infrastructure, where eventually we'll have things called eVTOLs, which are electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, right? So they used to be called like flying cars, but they're no longer requiring wheels to have to do anything. You're talking just like a drone, but can fly people now. Now, what happens when you link a drone that is one of the first on the scene for information, reconnaissance, sending information back to what's called a vertiport? And then now you send an eVTOL out to do human transportation, where you're shipping, victims out of a crime, of a scene or a disaster or a shooting, and you can send it in autonomously, have people fill in, fly it out without putting anyone else in danger. So we're creating an infrastructure around that with PromoDrone, our partners, global aerial management. We have a lot of things, we're building to. So
man, that's beautiful. Like, and I love. The cool thing I love about your story, how the transitions, and then how even in the business part, you're able to evolve, pivot, and innovate throughout the whole course of it. And I think that's something that every entrepreneur needs to understand and be able to know to be successful as an entrepreneur, because we get stuck on that one idea and that one outcome that we don't realize the opportunity or the other opportunities. And you clearly have done that, not just through this business, but through your whole life. Now, I go back to the music thing real quick, because I know you were mostly in the hip hop scene, but I'm always curious to know from a musician mindset, did you have a musical influence that would come as a surprise to most of like the people who know you and rocks you in the prime of your career?
I wouldn't say comes as a surprise because I was influenced a lot by the most popular MCs that, like most people, right? Think of my very first favorite MC was LL Cool J, right? Like before
Man,
anybody, he was like my favorite, right? And then the Redmans come out, and then the Nas's come out, and then the Jay-Z's, and then so progressively. So I come from the school of lyricism and lyricists, so I've been inspired and influenced by every single one of them. I would say Nas probably the most early on when I was still finding my own space. Just his ability to tell a story and weave words together kind of reminded me of naturally, instinctually. But I've always had a different style. My style is definitely a lot different than that. But
nice.
yeah, so no, I would say not as a surprise, but I would say, again, I want to add to that. I grew up in a musical household, right? I told you my dad's a jazz percussionist, one of the greatest percussionists that's ever lived, right? So when I grew up, I'm not only listening to what I like, I'm listening to what he loved, and he's exposing me to that, right? So I grew up in, before we get to his jazz stuff, I'm listening to Motown as a kid, and everything in between, and I'm listening to jazz bands, the Yellow Jackets, blues fusion. I'm listening to pretty much everything under the sun because my dad was just that. He's eclectic and he listened to a lot of that music. So, either by force or interest, I was exposed to that stuff, and that's what gave me my rhythm. My dad taught me syncopation, how to count music at a very young age, how to, so timing, he's like a human clock. So when I hear things, and now it's funny because like I can be putting dishes away and there'll be music playing, and the way I stack the cups will line up exactly with the tone, like the beat, right? Like it's like my life is in rhythm so much. And it's so weird. Like I'll be throwing stuff in there, and the clanging of the metal against each other will sound like the bells in a song, right when it's supposed to.
Yeah,
I just laugh.
your life really is in rhythm because you're timing into the market too. Like often certain businesses, their timing in the market is just off. The idea may be good, but the whole thing is off, like in the timing of the market. And I feel like you getting into drones was right at the best timing because you were early into the market.
Yes, the first. I can't believe it. I'm like, I pinch myself. It's like I was there. Like imagine being on the internet before there was even a www dot, right? Like so we're there. Now we've gotten to a point where we have big partners. We're about to announce a major OEM partnership with a globally recognized drone manufacturer. And once the lawyers are done lawyering, that's going to be public. I mean, they're publicly traded companies. So this is going to be a major, major, major announcement and growth opportunity for both of our organizations, right? So I want to touch on what you talked about earlier, which was pivot, right? And I like, and I never really thought about it in the terms of outside of business, but I have done like some real pivots, like, kind of deal, right? But in order to understand how to pivot, you need support, right? Like most people just don't change, so my change came because I had people that put me in environments that exposed me to things, right? The mind needs exposure to grow, like a plant needs exposure to the sun. We need exposure to life in order to grow, right? And where we come from sometimes, and whether it be physical or even emotional or mental mindsets, where we come from, we're in the shade, right? So it's up to us to have to, get out in the sun. But sometimes you need somebody out there to kind of pull you a little bit, encourage you. So throughout my life, I've had great people contribute to my ability to see my own greatness, right? So that's like my mission now in life, is to like help as many people tap into the greatness that's inside of everybody. Like we're all born with that. Like Jay-Z's not unique in that fact. Like Michael Jackson's not unique in that fact. Like Eddie Murphy and anybody in between, the greatest name, Madonna, you name them. They're just like you and I. They just tapped into something with support of the people around them. And through their change and their pivots and all these things became someone that we celebrate, to some degree. So
I love
we
that.
all have that. Every single person on this planet.
Like that's a bar right there. Like I feel like even the way you speak is like you speak in double entendres and metaphors. Like my man said, and he had a couple bars in there. My man said, your mind needs exposure, just like I forget the rest of the line, but like a plant needs sun. I was like, ooh, that's like a double bar right there, right?
It's the truth, man. Our bars all come from truth, right? And observation, man. So, I read and listen too, right? Like one of my traits that I've learned, I wasn't so good at it as a youth when I was more of a follower. Now I listen and observe, and I'm a dot connector, right? I like to figure out things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we look too far ahead to solve our problems, right? Like the
Mm.
solutions right here, So our every day you walk around and you realize you can see your nose, right? Like if
Yeah.
you really focus, you can see the side of your nose, right? But
Yeah.
like if you're just looking, and it's like you can see a little perspective of it. You can't like see it. At least I
Yeah.
can see mine out of the corner of my eye. I see, formation of a nose, right?
Yeah.
But because of how we're taught to see the world, we look past it every single day. It's not until we have to focus on it that we realize we can see it a little bit out the side of our eyes, but it's never
Yeah.
not in our vision. It's always right there. We're just trained to look beyond it. So
Yeah.
psychologically, that's what we do as well. These solutions are right here. We just have to know that sometimes you don't have to look so far for it. Like a drone that can do advertising, like that sounds super complex, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it came out of something it's really like this, right? So the most valuable tools that we've created are things usually that are right here that most people have been looking so far past. And
Yeah. So
it's
true.
life, man. Sometimes you just got to take it in,
Yeah,
step
another
back a little
thing
bit.
that you touched on is the power of just not only exposure but having those people to and those things that kind of help you scale and grow. You seem to be able to do that even as you pivoted from one identity of the drone company to the next. When you look at how you were able to pivot, what made you successful in doing that? And then, you know, for you, do you look at having more employees or do you use contractors? Which ways of scaling is better when you look
Um,
at?
yeah. So great questions. Thank you. And so what made us decide to do it was I brought on a very valuable partner who gave me
Mm-hmm.
some new perspective, right? So that's when you talk about valuable people, pivots, we realized that one, we still have a great market in advertising. People are calling us every day for that when our new product is ready. However, we realize that the pathway to success lies more than just innovation. It lies in infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in order for drones to scale, you have to have systems in place. You have to have laws in place. You have to have a lot of these partnerships in place to scale it. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, are we really ready to have 12 of these at Disney? Like tomorrow. That's what we're aiming for. Those kinds of companies like Disney. If
Yeah.
you're listening, Disney, we want you, right? But before that, in order to get the likes of FAA and some of these aviation people to really take you seriously and listen, if you show them how you're using it to save lives, if you show them how you're improving, disaster search and recovery efforts where big government budget spending's already going in order to improve, and you're a part of that solution, it expedites your ability to grow, scale, and get the
Mm-hmm.
favorable, thing. So now we're at this point of convergence where drone technology, flight, weight, and all of those things are getting better, battery life, affordability,
Yeah.
are converging with regulatory support, infrastructure, and innovation, and now general public acceptance.
Yeah.
So now we're able to have survived through COVID and all that to get a point where now we're on the other side of it, where we're seeing all these funnels come together into one.
Nice.
Still challenges, but they're starting to come together into one. So in order to know that when this pivot, listen, ask for advice. I had a good buddy of mine call me just yesterday, said, dude, I think I want to pivot. And it was music to my ears, because that means he's paying attention to the emotional state of his business, right? Like your business has an emotional state and you want to keep that
Mm-hmm.
healthy. You want to keep their emotional state in a healthy space. So sometimes you got to break up with the old one to get with the new one, kind of deal, so you gotta, like you said earlier, and it takes people and feedback. I may have been his person to help give that feedback, and then we brainstorm what some of those pivots might be, and now he's got a new thing to think about. That happened with me. Like, okay, so we pivoted. And then in terms of contractors or employees, most startups aren't going to have the bandwidth for employees right out the gate, right? So the most powerful tool startups have is their equity in an innovative solution, right? If you have a
Mm-hmm.
solution that people believe in and they can see the path to success, the viability in it,
Mm-hmm.
the scalability, and you are a good person to work with, you have, that's number one, right?
Yeah.
Just be a good person that does good business before
Yeah.
anything, and you'll attract the kind of people, because you'll have consistent results. Even your
Mm-hmm.
failures fail you forward, right? Like even you fail, you can stumble, but stumble forward. You're gonna have setbacks, but bounce back from those setbacks, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
bounce back is what we're focused on, not the setback. It's the bounce back. So it took me years to find the right team. I went through a co-founder's no longer with the company. I've gone through several different marketing partners that are no longer with the company.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I have my equity. So now I have a really good partner who has some equity in the company. She's getting paid as a consultant, but is really integrated. So find ways to use, consultant, contractors, whoever it may be, advisors, especially. There's a lot of people out there that if you're ambitious, if you're a good person to work with and you really want to push your, they'll spend time with you. I have advisors that just love to help us because they see the vision and they're at a place in their career where they have the bandwidth. So get your team built early, even if it's people that are just working out of the goodness of their heart. Get somebody on your team to help you look at the bigger perspective. And one of my advisors always equated it to chopping trees. When you're chopping trees, you don't see the forest, right? You're down there swinging your axe, but sometimes you got to put the axe down and come up to that 30,000 foot view to see how much you've cleared already and how much you have to go, or if you need to keep swinging that axe or move to something else, right? So it's a horrible analogy, but I have to.
I get it. Like
chopping the planet up at the same time, like destroying the planet for a metaphor of like building.
We take out the destroying the planet part. It was a great analogy.
But it is stiff when you think about it. You're building yourself up by destroying something else. Anyway, you get where I'm going with it. So that's how it all came together. And so find the right people and be patient and just know that there are resources out there. Like I was a part of Connect All. I was part of the ICCC program, whatever, ICCC program, Inner City Capital Connections program. We were part of the, it was a think tank thing that a while back. We've done so many cohorts, like 6 different cohorts just to learn. Each one has a different personality. You learn a little bit more. And just keep pushing, man. Keep pushing and and the one thing I want to tell founders is don't be scared to look for money. Right. Like a lot of founders, especially minority owned business founders, we do have lack of access to capital. And I started to really think why, though. Right. Like not beyond the bigger, racial construct and social things. Right. But accountability is a part of it, too. Right. Like if we're going to look at the whole picture, we got to look at all the whys, not just the ones that are comfortable. Right. The uncomfortable whys are the most important whys anyway. Right. So when I think about why, I was like, when I started out, was I actually going out for money the right way? Was I focused on sharpening my business to a point to be ready for money?
Yeah.
Was I serious about the right people to help me get there? Or am I still relying on the people that I'm comfortable with? So now my circle is diverse. It looks like, a bunch of different people from everywhere, and I want to keep building that. And because that's what it takes. But if I stuck to my comfort zone and just wanted to, then I would still be part of that percentage. And we've raised some funds. We still raising more, but I have a major OEM that's investing in our company. We've raised, hundreds of thousands of dollars already as a company, right? So we are just pushing forward, but don't be scared to ask for the money and believe in yourself with it. But make sure you're doing the work to make yourself believable in yourself. Don't bullshit. You can't bullshit yourself. So,
nah. And it shows up too. You could tell when somebody is BSing you. It's just the energy that comes off with it is just all off. So yeah, I agree with all that. Every time I speak to you, I learn something new, and I know that you got the people that you surround yourself with that help guide you, give you a ton of knowledge. But I'm curious, what's your all-time favorite business book?
Business book? I don't. It's interesting because most of the books that I read are about the business of life, right? I have business books, right? But I would say the most influential things to me as a business leader, the books that I've read that have been the most influential to me, The Power of Now, The 4 Agreements, right? Those things, those are the books that root me in my foundation and help me strip myself of my ego, right? To really put me, no matter how much success, acclaim, accolades, awards, I'm a human being, right? I get sick, I have emotions, and I want to make my experience as great as it can be for me, but I also, like I said, want to tap into other people. So, there's a great book called Unfuck Yourself, actually.
My wife is reading that book.
That's a great book, right? Like the 3 principles. I'm actually reading that book right now. But in terms of straight business books, I recommend any startup, any founder to read Venture Deals. It's
Venture
a book called
Deals.
Venture.
Okay.
Yes, Venture Deals. Right. It's by Brad Felds. I believe his last name is Felds, but
Yeah.
you may correct me if I'm wrong. But it's called Venture Deals.
Okay.
Guys, and that book is the literal business Bible for businesses that are looking for funding or have complex, legal agreements pending or anything of that sort. If you're dealing with any kind of contracts, if you're dealing with any kind of funding, lawyers, any kind of anything really, partnerships, ownership, that book is the testament for startups.
Yeah.
So read that book. Venture Deals is the name of the book.
Venture Deals. Okay. Make sure y'all put that in y'all put pen to paper, write it down now. Venture Deals. I'm about to go look for it myself once I get off this show. Now I want to go back to something that you said that really stuck with me about making sure we ask the right questions, get around people around, get a little comfortable, get comfortable with being uncomfortable so that you can grow. And I think sometimes that's the biggest thing that stumps us, especially for the Black community. Like whether we're scared of success or scared of failure. In your opinion, in your humble opinion, what is the scariest thing about entrepreneurship?
I think it shifts, right? Because we have a variety of fears, but the scariest thing, I would say initially it might be the success, and not success. I'll take that back. It's the responsibility that comes with being successful, right? Right. So success is one thing, but when you actually sign the deal, now you got to do the work, right? Like everything up to this point is practice. Like you get real comfortable with the journey. And now when those milestones come and you sign that deal, the journey really matters now, because now you've got you people are relying on you. You owe people. You've got to hit things that before you might have had a little, you could blame it on, I didn't have budget, or I didn't have this, and now you don't have any excuses. There's no more excuses. So now you have to honor your word, and that's one of those agreements, right? Honor your word, right? So that, I think, scares most entrepreneurs, because they get, and I think not just entrepreneurs, people in life, they get, so caught up in the chase, and they have, and the excuses of not being successful in the chase are enough to satisfy their desire, which ultimately the success, is what you want, but just feeling like you're chasing it is enough for most people, because it gives them an easy out if it doesn't happen. Hey, I tried, kind of deal. And we all have to try, but until you push yourself over that comfort zone where now you are responsible for that now, where you've actually, that's the scariest part. It's like, all this is practice. Now you owe it to people now. But also with fear comes motivation, right?
Yeah.
The scariest thing should not be the thing that keeps you from going in it. You should be looking at what happens if this doesn't work out. Not like if it does work out, that's beautiful. Like if this does, so I'm not thinking about that, but I'm like, if this doesn't work out, like, so I'm motivated every day by like, not just that, but like what the future looks like. I'm inspired by what these results are going to do for me, my family, generational legacies, all other people's families, complete strangers. I want some person that I've never met or will never ever meet, through some dissecting connection, just have their life changed. I don't care if it's a third person information, 2 people away from whatever. I don't, like, that's what I'm here for. Like that's it. That's my job, kind of deal. So
I love that. So when you look back on your journey all the way up into here, starting this drone company, looking back on what you know now, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I always find that kind of like a loaded question to some degree. Because see, here's how I look at life to some degree, or a portion of how I look at things. Doing something differently doesn't necessarily mean you would have gotten to a different or better place, right? Because the way the universe works, it doesn't work on our terms, right? Mm-hmm. So I can change something that I may perceive as being something that I would like to have done better, but ultimately that could guide me to a path that could eventually been destructive. You never know, right? Like you never know we assume that replacing something negative from our past with something positive would lead to a more positive result.
Man.
But those same things that were negative are also what built us to be the version of why we're at exactly where we're at in this moment in
So
time,
true.
right? So I would say I probably wouldn't change a thing. I would say if I had a second version of myself, right? Like if I cloned myself from scratch, I would have that clone realize their greatness earlier and focus on their internal development at a much earlier point. Now, granted, I'm still young, I'm only 43, and a lot of people, double my age don't, see some of this stuff. And I'm going to be learning until I'm in the grave, right? I'm going to be figuring out this life thing until there's no more in me, right? Kind of deal. So, I just encourage exploration. Like I would encourage diversity of thought, opening up your mind and understanding that being out of your comfort zone is going to be the better thing for you. And I spend so much time being comfortable in an environment that, but when you're a kid and you're growing up, you can't just like move out the house, right? Like you can't just like leave the block and like go, I want to just go see the world, you don't even, wait, where, how you going to start? Where you going to go? You just doing what? How? Who?
Who money? Where you going to stay at? All right.
So I was fortunate because I had a dad and a mom, right? And a lot of my, when I was growing up, one of my buddies, saw his mom get murdered, like stabbed to death right on the steps, two buildings up from our house, blood still on the steps, years later, kind of deal. Drug dealers in the neighborhood, but back then the drug dealers were right next door and their kids were your friends and they were just like good. They were people. They weren't. You didn't know about, you hear the stories and stuff, but as a kid, you don't know why this guy had the BMW on the block and why they had gold chains and wore the Fila sweatsuits and all of that. You were just like, dang, you were just looking at him like, yo, like you didn't realize.
Like that, I'm trying to get right. I'm trying to be fly too. What I gotta do?
So I was fortunate that was when I got arrested at 11 years old, my dad, that was the point where he's like, okay, I can't let my son be a statistic. He can't be arrested at 11 years old, right? Like breaking into abandoned houses and, whatever. And knowing that if I would have come from a slightly different background, let's say, I probably wouldn't even have been arrested for that. I'd have been taken home to my parents, but I was taught to get comfortable with the inside of a holding cell before I even. Yeah,
like you start to normalize it, all of us have been in this environment and in this situation at least once, and it's just normal, right? And it's not supposed to be normal.
And that shouldn't be it shouldn't be normal. Like that does not normalize it. It's not a normal part of a growing experience. That's not what life is about, right? That's not the diversity we need, nah, man. So I'm just fortunate right now. Like I feel extremely humble every single day. Right. Like I wake up humbled, inspired, like fire in my belly, like let's go get it, but extremely humble because like I realized that it's just ego at the end of the day. Right. Like, so that's why I keep my mission about other people. Right. I know whatever CEO and all that doesn't mean much to me. The title doesn't mean much to me. Right. I've been assistant vice presidents of banks before. And I think when I lost that suit and for that time, it taught me that valuable lesson and never rely on those titles or those suits to identify who I am, use the inside. So it doesn't matter what you call me. You just call me Jamar or whatever. I'm not, that's just who I am. That's my name, so to speak. So I think, and I'm at that point where I don't, even as big as I know PromoDrone will get, it's only as good as it'll help other people become. And that my success is defined by that. So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Love that. Now here's the part where I want to go through a quick snapshot because we got the overhead version, and a lot of times when I talk to you starting out entrepreneurs, new college graduates, they want to they feel like they should be hitting the ground running as soon as they get that thing or they finish that program, or like success is supposed to take off just like that. And I told them, no, there's levels to it, right? Like sometimes you may not get there first. And I always like to ask this question just to show like progression. Like, look, this person's first job was this, and now there's this, right? So what was your first job?
Scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins.
Scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins?
I scooped ice cream at Baskin Robbins, and made Sundays for people at Baskin Robbins. That was my very first, real job. I had a job throwing newspapers, and I would get up at 5 a.m. with, back in the day, the guy that taught me really. I saw how to rap or whatever,
Yeah.
and we would his mom's boyfriend at the time had a little Honda Accord with the hatchback. Would pay us $1 a day or 75 cents, and we would ride around and throw the newspapers out on the lawn. But
Oh,
you
so
know, my
you was
real
always you was always getting to the bag, huh? Somehow.
oh, always, man. I sold Cutco knives. I was going door to door for a marketing firm, and during September, back in 2001, up in Queens and Brooklyn and all through New York, going door to door, man. For my shoes, I would come home after walking miles every day, shoes worn out, but I was hungry. And then that was before banking. That was, during college, senior year, junior year of college, and then I started selling Cutco knives, trying to,
I love it.
Yeah, and then got into substitute teaching and then banking.
Now, I know somebody's going to be inspired by your episode because a lot of people always ask me questions about different people's episodes. And the question usually comes like, all right, you got to ask them next time, like what steps would they give me if I wanted to start a career in or do entrepreneurship in the industry that you're in, right? And this might be somebody who's fresh out of college. This might be an entrepreneur ready to start up. This might be somebody who's having that epiphany and they're transitioning from leaving one career and trying to do the next thing. And I know tech, drones, all that is the way of the future. And a lot of people are like, man, okay, I could make a career of that. I could get in that industry because Jamar did, God did, Jamar did.
Right.
And so what steps would you give to somebody who's looking to transition into your industry? What some advice you would give to them?
First advice I would give to anybody is get a mentor. Find a mentor. Okay. Right? Find someone that will expedite your growth and your perspective quickly. Find someone who has bandwidth, that is someone that has either gone down the path you want to go or some similar path as an owner, founder that's done it successfully. That's been literally the saving grace with my ability to start to grow my company. Mm-hmm. Once you have interest in it, find groups and associations that you can partner with to start being a voice, right? That's the next thing you want to do, is become a voice, not just a participant, become a voice. The voices are the ones who stand out. Like for our industry, instead of just, hey, we're building a new drone, we're actively participating in building the regulations. We're actively participating in building the infrastructure. We're at the table that are having the conversations on where the industry is going to go, right? So find a mentor, get a seat at some table, even if it's a local chapter of the local drone, whatever. Get a voice. Take an active role in wanting to add and improve or change whatever it is that you're doing. Not to just be a passive participant. Look actively to see how you can, expand or make it better or improve this situation for all the people in it. So, and then that's the third thing or fourth, whatever one how you want to number it. Think bigger than yourself.
Think bigger than yourself. I love that.
Think bigger than yourself. Think bigger than yourself. Yep. Know that if you focus on the greater good, you're going to get your share. It's going to work out. If you step out of your comfort zone, find ways to bring greatness out of other people, tap into how you can help them, not just how they can help you. Be a valuable asset to other people. And most people that do that are creators, right? Usually creators, doers, people of action are valuable. So use that to help other people. And what happens is you start to build trust. And that's the number one thing, right? In life, trust, right? Yeah. So when you build trust, people want to bring you opportunities because they trust that you'll do it right. Yeah. Get it done on time, have accountability, have follow through, are talented, all of those things. And you prove that through having a voice, being visible and being out there. So be visible, think bigger than yourself, and then go learn. Go be a sponge. And then just be a sponge.
That was beautifully said. So, if you don't take anything away from what this man just said, build trust and add value. Those are recipes for success right there. So, along with all the other greatness that my man Jamar has been spitting to us today, where do you see the future going with this technology, with drones and this whole industry? What does the future look like?
Autonomous. So. What I was mentioning earlier was kind of a glimpse into it. Yeah. I see drones being valuable parts of fully fleshed out, scalable ecosystems, not always just the one-off pilots that are flying for real estate and things like that. Eventually, like I said, now we're building specifically for emergency search rescue with digital displays on them, AI and all this type of stuff.
Wow.
But they're still being manually piloted, right? Soon it'll be more autonomous flights where they're part of a 911 system, whereas 911 operators get calls the way they would normally get them and send out ambulances or whatever. Now these auto-deployed, robotics can go out, which save time, people power and all of that good stuff. So it's going to be, the future is economically viable because it's scalable. You're reducing costs. The materials are going down, but the efficiencies of these products are going up. So what I see is mass deployment. You're going to see global deployment where airspaces are directly tied to certain types of drone operations. You're going to see more vertical integration in our landscape, going from runway required flight to more vertical takeoff and landing. And eventually, man, I feel fortunate. We both should, because we live in a time where within the next 15 years, for what people are paying for, I would say Bentley right now, 300,000 to, you'll have an eVTOL flying vehicle, and you'll have a luxury flying vehicle. So imagine what the videos are gonna look like then. Really stunt.
That's gonna be some new level. Like you ain't really doing nothing until you got one of these.
Right. And that's what we're building the future of, right? So now we're building the future. Looks like you'll be able to land them at malls, have them charged just like you would a Tesla while you're at the mall. Get into your helipad, which will have a pilot, eventually be autonomous. Now you're flying back to your vertiport, and now there's, for a fee, obviously you're paying, a fee to have that service. And now you have a subscription service, just like Uber, for these flying vehicles that go from vertiport to vertiport, not through streets like they are now, but from specific locations to drop, pick up and drop points.
Man, that's just mind blowing to me. I can't wait. I'm here for all of it. Like, as soon as I see it, I'm like, yo, I had that same conversation with Lord Jamar.
Yeah, right. So what blew my mind, right? So I'm watching the Ravens game. Right, I'm from Baltimore, right? So I'm watching the Ravens game, and we took that loss to I think it was the Dolphins, right? Yeah, it was during the Dolphins game. And then this Honda commercial comes on, and it talks about the legacy of Honda. And the commercial starts off in black and white with like a pedal bike, like motorcycle, kind of got a pedal to get started kind of deal, with the old racing clothes, the old black and white. Then it goes from that to like a little box car, then to like a car from the early 80s to 90s, 2000s. And then they ended the commercial saying the future of Honda, right? They started with where they started, and it was an eVTOL flying vehicle flying through a city, and you could see the reflection through the buildings of this flying vehicle, and you saw the Honda logo on that flying vehicle. So they share, and this is during the NFL game. This is not like searching on YouTube to kind of find eVTOL specific research, stuff.
Yeah.
This just came on right after the Budweiser commercial. Like right after that, boom,
that's
eVTOL
crazy.
from my home. Right. So it's not just me and our partners coming up with these like insane ideas. There's 70 eVTOL companies in existence that are already having platforms that are ready to go. Infrastructure is the part that falls behind. So drones are ushering in that infrastructure, because now the FAA is like, oh, wow, now we get it, right? We're starting to learn how impactful and economically and viable these things are. It's making the eVTOL integration faster as well. It's not going to take as long for those as it did for drones. So now we're neighbors, we're friendlies, and we're helping. Both of the industries are helping.
Man.
So autonomous flight, vertical flight, vertical. That's where we're going.
Man, that's mind blowing. That's mind blowing.
Yeah.
All right. You gave us a lot today, sir.
Thanks for having me, man. Beautiful conversation.
This is a beautiful conversation, man. I can't wait for I want to keep going for another hour, but I know that's I'm not one of those podcasts that can do that. I'm not Joe Rogan, so I'm trying to figure how do I wrap this up, because I want to keep going. All right, let's do this.
Very grateful.
If you could meet an entrepreneur, living or dead, who would it be?
If I could meet an entrepreneur,
yeah,
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal. Okay, why Shaquille?
Yes, because what Shaq has done for his brand, and it's been magnificent. It's incredible, right? Like there's a lot of innovators, people that build stuff, but I think of people who have used their personality, trust to build trust, their accountability. I admire Shaq because there's some scandal going on in the NFL, in the NBA, with somebody sleeping with somebody's wife or something. And they asked Shaq about it. He says, "Look, I can't comment on it because I was a serial cheater and da da da." So his accountability and owning up and not being afraid to address his past, to go from being this first class athlete to becoming now a person that inspires. I mean, this guy goes to the toy stores and buys families entire rows of toys and groceries like
I heard
strangers.
about that.
Yeah, right. And because of his thinking bigger than himself, putting other people first, building trust. He's become the face of how many brands? He owns how many catalogs of music? So he's been entrusted. When you talk about trust, if you're a face of Papa John's, a face of this brand, these major brands, Icy Hot and Pepsi, whatever, a million brands, I can name 10 dozen of them, and he's the face of them. They don't just put anybody up there, and they put him up there proudly because he's entrusted with their brand, and they trust him to be valiant with that brand and to do the right thing with it. And that didn't come overnight. It came from grit, from accountability, failing forward, and then performance and getting up and dusting his shoulders off, putting in the work and coming back out to get to play, even when it was a bad day the day before, right? So he's built that. So that's why I say Shaq, right? Because he's positioned himself as a kind of an all-around human being that's able to inspire people and bring out greatness in others. So it would be Shaq. He would be one of them. I would say Shaq.
I love
the first that comes to me. I'm sure there's many. I can probably name a dozen, but he's the first that comes to mind.
Nah, I love it. A beautiful answer. All right, so now let's truly end it off like this and wrap it up. What projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Right now, it's our standby for our big announcement for our OEM partnership. OEM is an original equipment manufacturer, so we have a manufacturing partnership we're about to announce. When that's announced, we'll be officially in development, of our next gen unit. So we're developing our Generation 2 beta platform that'll be ready by Q1 2023. Nice. So that's a flying unit with digital displays on it, all the bells and whistles that comes along with that.
Nice.
So that's our focus now, and then raising funds, right, for the company. So we have $1 million raise we're kicking off now, that I can give more details and stuff. We've already raised some funds, and we're continuing that push for that. And that's the biggest project: getting these betas ready, getting the funding in place to build out our personnel, and when this thing's ready by March, April of next year, taking as many contracts as possible. We're registered on SAM.gov. We're ready to take government contracts and start hitting up the EMS, agency. So targeting the biggest and most reputable emergency response agencies and demonstrating our technology and the capabilities and why they should, be a part of what we're doing.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Love it. Jamar, man, thanks for coming on, blessing the show with your knowledge, your words of wisdom. Y'all make sure y'all check them out. Instagram, Twitter, you got any of that stuff?
Yeah. We mostly do LinkedIn. That's where business happens for us, is on LinkedIn. We do have an Instagram page, just promo.drone on Instagram. So check us out on there. I don't usually promote my personal page.
Check them out on LinkedIn. So if there's any businesses that follow us or VCs, check them out there, get connected. Any last words of wisdom for the people before we close out?
Just thank you, man, for having me on the show. I'm extremely just inspired, impressed by what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to when it's posted. So I'm just grateful, man. Thanks again for having me, just giving me the time to just tell my story. And it's because of people like you giving us the opportunity. It keeps our spirits going, keeps us in the mood, and it makes us feel like what we're doing really matters to even be considered to be on these kind of platforms.
Brother, so, what you're doing really matters, and I think
grateful. Thank you.
You're Black history in the making, and I hope when they tell your story, they tell it right. They come back here and get some of it, and inspire the next generation to do amazing and great things. So thank you, and keep doing what you're doing. If you didn't hear any of the show links, don't worry. I'm gonna get his information. I'm gonna put the show links in the bottom of this show so you can connect with him if you want to do business with him. And thank you again, King. Appreciate you for coming out.
Thank you, man.
That's the end of our show. See you all in the next time.